What if you can create a talking baby podcast without a real baby, a mic, or any editing? I used AI and N8N to automate the entire thing, voice, video, and the script. And the results are hilarious. Let me show you how. I did a random search on TikTok for baby podcasts, okay? And this profile came up. It has almost 35,000 followers, almost 1 million likes. There's nothing that spectacular about it. They have about 20 uploads. But I mean, if you look at the first video here, which is sorted by popular, it has 5.2 million views. Okay, so if I click inside of this is just a very funny, engaging baby podcast video. Okay, it's got some captions there. It doesn't even have any voiceover or background music or anything like that, which is something that I'm gonna show you how you're gonna do in this video. Okay, so some more interesting metrics, 600,000 likes, 4,000 comments, just over 57,000 bookmarks. Okay, and there's a lot of information here. Okay, and this is not even that old. This profile is, I think, about a month old, and there's not even a bio. Okay, so there's so much you can do with a profile like this, which they're not doing. Okay, so for this automation, you're going to require a couple of things. Okay, so the first thing is you want a paid plan on Hedra. Okay, so Hedra is the image rendering tool that I'm going to use, and I'll show you how to set that up. The second thing you need is a paid 11 Labs. Now you can sign up for 11 Labs for free, but I found that on the free plan, you can't actually access the API, right? So they do give you something like 10,000 credits, but you can't trigger the API through the free plan. Okay, so you are going to need a pay plan, but they're not expensive, right? They're really affordable. I think the 11 Labs is like $5 a month and Hedra is $10 a month. So I paid for both. I'll show you how to set that up. And the last thing, just have some fun with it, right? Because this stuff is trending. There's a lot of content out there. There's YouTube Shorts, there's Insta and TikTok Reels, okay? So the next thing I'm going to show you is what the output of the automation I built, and I'll show you one of the videos. This automation has 3 parts. The first part is the yellow sticky here. So this will create the audio prompt from the form submission. It then uses that for text to speech. It basically configures it in these 3 modules here, and then it sends the data up into Hedra by uploading it, okay? The second part is the same, but this time we're going to do it for the image. So it's going to create the image prompt. It then creates the image, it then configures the image data, and then it uploads the image into Hedra. So Hedra is where I'm going to render everything. And then the last part, which is the red sticky note here, it basically processes all the data using a merge. It will then create the final video. It then gets the video, downloads the video, and then uploads it into YouTube. Okay, so this is what the final output looks like. I'm just going to play it for you.
Man, Elon Musk is like this cosmic blender of genius and madness, right? Dude's out here trying to clone the future, colonize Mars, but also tweeting meme-level chaos. It's wild. Like if Tesla is the body, SpaceX the soul, and Twitter...
Well, that's pretty damn good, right? It's about, I don't know how long it is. It's about 23 seconds long. The longer the video, the more expensive it's going to be because it's going to require more tokens, more credits, okay? So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to build this entire system. Let's build the first part of the automation, and you can see that the trigger is an on-form submission. Okay, so if you go to the nodes panel, just put form, and it's just the N8N form, okay? So inside of the form, I'm asking a couple of questions. And basically the form title is, you can create whatever you want, but I've put in the enter baby podcast requirements, the details needed to generate the AI podcast, okay? And then I've got some form elements, and these are all mandatory. So I've got race, which is a drop-down list, and I've put some options in here, so white, black, Asian. Again, you can put whatever, entry drop-down list you want in here. This is a required field. Then the second thing I've added is hair color, and again, it's a drop-down list, and I've added the options black, brown, blonde, and that's required field. And then eye color, again, drop-down list, blue, and the options are blue, green, brown. Again, mandatory. And then a topic of conversation, what would you like them to talk about on the podcast? Okay, so I've just put a text element, and this is just a placeholder, right? To give your users or whatever some ideas. Okay, so I'll put in Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and climate change, right? When you run the test step, you'll see it'll come out like this. And these are basically variables that we can use later in the flow, okay? So going back into the audio agent, the first node that you want is the OpenAI node. So if I just click inside of here, I'm using 4.1 mini for this because it's very affordable and it's a step up from 4.0. And there's a user prompt in here, and this is the prompt, okay? So create a podcast monologue in the voice of Joe Rogan, focused on the subject of, and then I've taken the topic of conversation, which is this field here, and I've dragged it and dropped it, okay? Which is, for my form submission, this was Elon Musk. The tone should be off the cuff, intense, and slightly speculative, with side tangents, odd metaphors, and Joe's signature style of diving into existential rabbit holes. So if you know what Joe Rogan's about, he deep dives into these long form podcasts, okay? So that's the style I've gone for. You can put this in any style, any format you want. Just bear in mind that I am actually formatting this in JSON, okay? So keep the flow natural, like a real podcast. Output monologue is a single JSON object called podcast, and limit the response to exactly 300 characters. This is important because the more characters you use, the more output you're going to need, which means it's going to cost you a lot more when you start rendering these assets, okay? So that's it done there. You just want to simplify the output, make sure that's checked, and then you want to output the content as JSON, because I've asked it to create a JSON field called podcast, right? So when you run that, here's the variable, it's called podcast, and now this is basically what the AI has created. And I'm going to use this later downstream to create the rest of the audio. And then the next thing you want is a HTTP request node. So if you click inside of here, you'll see that I've got a post method, and this time I'm basically calling the API at 11 Labs, okay? And this is the voice that I'm using. This is the voice ID. So if I just open this up, you'll see that this is the voice ID. If you're not sure and you want more information, head over to the 11 Labs API documentation. It's really good, and they'll give you like a list of all the avatars and the voices and the names, and you basically need this code here, okay? This string. That's what will trigger it. This is the endpoint text to speech. And then for the send headers, you want to toggle that on. We're going to use the below fields. And then the first one is XAI-API-key, and the value is your API, okay? So if you head over to 11 Labs, let's go inside of here. Is it this one? Maybe this one. So this is 11 Labs. This will take you to home. And the pricing is not too bad, okay? So it is affordable. You got subscription here, and you get, I think, 40,000 credits on the $5 a month plan, which is not bad at all. So head over to API keys, and then you just generate one of the keys, grab it, and then paste it here, okay? This is by no means the rest of the keys. So if you are thinking of swiping this, I've got some bad news for you, okay? And then the next header you want is content-type. Pay attention to the capitalization, and then the value is application-JSON, okay? I'm using this because this is what the 11 Labs API tells me that I need to do, right? I need to send these two headers, okay? You're always going to need to send the API key, right? That's what determines whether you have access or not. And then you want to toggle body. The content type is JSON, and because we're sending payloads back to 11 Labs, it's always going to be JSON, so you're using JSON for the body. And then if I click inside of here, the JSON is going to be text, right, which is the variable that 11 Labs needs. And then I'm using a dynamic variable, which is the podcast content output that I created in the previous node, okay? And then you can see here, this is the output from the AI node. When you run it, you'll see a file here, okay? And that's a good sign that it's worked. Then next thing you want to do is you want to configure the audio, so create another HTTP request node. So if I go inside of here, this will now basically use a post method, and then we are calling the API at Hedra, okay? So if you never used Hedra, just head over to hedra.com. These are the price plans. I'm on the basic plan, which is $10 a month. It gives you enough. There is a free plan, but you can't trigger the API, okay? So we go to profile. The API is in here somewhere. So let me just find it. Can't remember where I found the thing. It's on the settings somewhere if you want to find the API code. But have a look inside of here. It is inside here somewhere. I just can't remember where I found the thing. I think it was under settings. Here you go, API. So just scroll down. This is actually a scroll down menu, and then just click on API here, and then just copy this key. And then what you want to do is head back over to the HTTP request node. You're going to create an authentication, which is a generic credential type, and you're going to create a custom auth, okay? And then just call it Hedra, and then basically this is what it looks like, okay? So you're going to need some JSON here. So you want to send a header, and it's x-api-key, and then this is the API key from inside of your Hedra. And then the second header you want is content-type, and that's application JSON. Okay, so this is JSON that you need to send over to them. Just save it, call it header. And then there is one more thing that you want to toggle, which is send body. Again, we're going to send a payload, which means it's always going to be JSON. So the content type is JSON, the specified body is JSON. And then for this, the JSON is just a name and the type, and then I've just called it baby podcaster audio, and then type is audio, okay? Because this is the audio side of the flow. So when you test a step, you'll get the name of the object and you'll get the type and the ID, and this is what you want to see, okay? So once that's done, you can then merge the two assets together, okay? So just get a merge node. So if you go into the node panel, find merge here, click inside of here, and then this is just an append, and then you just want two outputs, okay? So what you do is you basically just connect both of these into input one, this one into input one and this one into input two, okay? And once that's done, you then want to create a code node. So just find the code inside of here. And what we need to do is we need to configure some metadata, right? Because this is what we're going to require before we can upload it into Hedra and basically render the final video, okay? So if I go inside of here, I'll just keep it brief because I know this is no code, but there are some things in here. So basically what this does is this will find the first item that contains binary data, right? And has at least one binary key. So this is basically binary data here. It's the audio, okay? Then it basically finds the first item that contains the JSON metadata, right? And then it returns a new array containing one object that merges both the binary and JSON metadatas. And so this is just a technical requirement that if you look at the Hedra documentation inside of the API, this is what they require before you can send it up, okay? Then when you do the output, you'll see this here as an audio MPEG file, and obviously the file size, okay? So then you know it's worked. This you only have to do once because you can clone it. And then the next node after that is the upload. So now we've got all the content, we've got it configured. Now we can upload the audio into Hedra. So if you want to create another HTTP request node, this time it's post, and then the API URL, the endpoint is this one here. It's upload, right? But we need the JSON ID, okay? So it basically goes a few nodes back, and it's this one here. The JSON ID is this one where it says ID, okay? And you just want to put that in there as a dynamic variable, and you want a / upload as the endpoint, okay? You're going to use the same authentication, which is the one you created. And then for the send body, this time the body type, because we're sending a file, right? We're not sending JSON, so it's a form data. And then the parameter type is a binary file, which means it's just a data file. The file name is file, and then the input data name is going to be data. So file is what we're sending to Hedra. We're selecting the data file from this side, okay? That's all that means. And then when you test a step, you'll see an output like this. And this is important because we need this ID file. It's got a thumbnail art. It's actually got the URL as well. So you can see that it's basically uploaded it into Hedra's cloud, right? And it's done the task, uploaded audio. So that's worked, okay? So now that's done, we can now move on to the second part, which is this one here. This is the image agent. For the image agent that you see, it's more or less the same thing, but now we're going to create an image prompt instead of an audio prompt. Okay, so the first node that's connected to the form submission is going to be an OpenAI node. And if you just click inside of here, it's still using exactly the same model, but I've changed the prompt. Okay, so this time I'm going to create a high quality image prompt of an adorable plump baby and I'm taking the variables for hair color from the form submission and the race as well, okay? So you can see on the output here with blonde hair and white features. Wearing oversized headphones and speaking to a sleek podcast mic. The baby should look charmingly serious, set the scene in a cozy podcast studio with dark velvet curtains and warm ambient lighting that brings out the baby's round cheeks and sweet expression. So I've kind of gone for the Joe Rogan podcast, you know, with he's got the drapes, the red curtains or whatever they are, to give it that kind of style, right? But again, you could put any prompt in here. This is just a basic user prompt. And again, you want to simplify the output and you want to make sure that the output content is JSON, right? Because when you run it, it's going to create a prompt variable, which is the prompt as created by ChatGPT, okay? And that's important. So the next one after that is now that we have the prompt, we can now create the image, okay? So this is in a HTTP request node. Just click inside of here. And then for this, I'm using the OpenAI GPT image 1. Okay, so it's a post method, and then the endpoint is generations, and then we just send some headers. Okay, so the first header is authorization, and it's bearer space and then your API key. So if you just head over to platform.openai.com, you can grab an API key. That's what I'm using here. Okay, then you want to toggle on send body. It's the body type is JSON, but this time we're going to use the below fields. Okay, and for this, it's the first parameter is going to be model, and the value for that is GPT image 1, which is the latest image API that OpenAI has released. And then for the prompt, it's just going to be the prompt that we've created in the previous node. Okay, so you just grab this, move over here, that's all it is. And then for the size, this is the size of the image. Okay, so I've gone for a 1024 by 1536, which is like more or less the YouTube Shorts or the TikTok, Instagram Reels format. Okay, if you want to know what other dimensions and specifications are available, just head over to the OpenAI API documentation, and it's all in there. Okay, then when you run it, you're going to see this output and a very strange file, which is a B64 JSON file. Okay, it's a base64. It's just a string like this. There's not much we can do with that. So what we need to do is we need to convert it. Okay, so use a convert to file node for the next one, which I've just renamed to convert to image. And the operation we're going to go for is move base64 string to file. Okay, which is this variable here. Okay, so for the base64 input field is just, you just drag and drop this, and then the output is just going to be data. When you run it, it's going to create, basically, it's going to turn this, which is just gobbledygook, right? It's going to turn it into an actual image. So if I view this, it's basically the image that I used to create the video. Okay, this is the guy. And once you have that, then we can configure the image inside of Hedra. So for these three, they can be exactly the same as these three, right? They're more or less the same. So you can copy and duplicate those. So if I go inside of here, we're just going to make some slight changes. So again, it's the same endpoint, it's assets. Okay, we're going to use the same authentication, which is the Hedra authentication that you set up earlier. The send bodies is going to be checked. It's JSON, and we're using JSON for the body. But this time, the name is baby podcaster image as opposed to audio. And the type now is image, okay, because we're on the image side of the flow. So when you run it, you'll see the output, and this is correct. This is what the correct output should be. Then we want to merge the assets. So this is identical to the one that you've duplicated, but I'll just click inside there to show you. It's exactly the same. So we're basically feeding in the input from the configure image and the convert to image nodes, okay? And it's an append, and that's all you need to do. And then for the configure image metadata, this is the same as well. There's nothing really here that we need to change. All I've done is change the name of the node because we cannot have duplicate names. And when you run it, you'll see a data output like this, which means it's worked, okay? And then for the last node here, it's an upload image as opposed to an upload audio. So if I click inside of here, you'll now see that there just is a slight change with the, in fact, it's the same. It's exactly the same as the other one. So if I go back up here, I'll show you, it's the same as this one, pretty much identical, right? So that's the same. And just to explain it quickly, it's getting the ID, right? The image ID that we've generated, which is a dynamic field here in green, and we're using the upload endpoint. It's got using all the same authentication and the body type. It's a binary file because this is a data file, right? So the file name is file and it's data. When you press test step, you'll see the output. So this is the image that's now been uploaded into Hedra's cloud, okay? So now that we have the image and the audio, we can now proceed to the third step, which is going to process everything and render the video, download it, and then upload it into YouTube. For the third and last part of the flow, we just want to process and upload the video, okay? So the first node is another merge node, and this time we're going to merge the image and the audio together, okay? So just grab the two inputs from the two previous flows. As you can see here, there's nothing else more to it. We're just going to append, okay? When you run it, you're going to see this, which is the output that you need. And then you want to separate the asset IDs, okay? So if I click inside of this code node here, there's some code in here, and basically it's just to basically strip out these IDs. You see, so it's got all this content in the previous node as the input. And what I'm trying to do is separate it out, right? Because at the moment it's just the URL, okay? And so what I'm doing with this code inside this code node, and this is just JavaScript, is we're just looping all incoming items and then check to see if there's an image. And then if there is, grab the image ID. If there's audio, grab the audio ID, okay? When you run it, you'll see an asset ID for the image, you'll see an audio asset ID, an image URL, audio URL, and that's what we need, right? Because I've got to strip it out, the individual parts before I can render it inside of Hedera, okay? And then the next node is going to be HTTP request. So now we're going to create the final video, okay? Because now we have all the components that we need. And so this time it's going to be the generations endpoint. It's a post method. We're using the same credentials, which is Hedera. The send body is toggled. It's going to be JSON because we're sending data, a payload back to Hedera. And so if I open this up, you'll see the JSON that I'm using. Now this is in their kind of format, okay? This is what they are telling us that they need. So the type is going to be video because that's what I'm creating. The AI model is this one here. This is the one I'm using. Again, if you want to know which AI models they have available, you can actually go on their documentation and you can see what's available, okay? And then for the keyframe ID, you need the asset ID. That's why we had to strip it and separate it in the previous node, okay? And then you need an audio ID as well, right? Because they're asking for this. This is mandatory when you send this information back to the API. And then for the text prompt, I've just put in a simple prompt, a chubby baby podcaster sitting in front of a mic, animatedly talking with playful hand movements and adorable expressions. It's very, very simple. You don't need to overcomplicate this too much because you've done most of the work with the previous two AI image and AI audio nodes, okay? Then the resolution 720, you can go full HD, there's even I think 4K, but just bear in mind that that's going to cost you a lot more in terms of tokens, and it's going to take a lot longer to generate the video as well, okay? And then the aspect ratio is 9:16, which is the reels and shorts dimensions, and then for the duration is 5,000 milliseconds, okay? So that's basically the output, and then when you run that, you're going to get this, okay? So as with any generative AI solutions, it's going to take some time for it to generate, okay? So that's why the next node is going to be a wait for video node, and it's just a wait node, right? If you go inside of here, I've set it to about 5 minutes, which is roughly what it takes. Okay, so the entire automation takes about 7 minutes to generate one video. Once it's done, you'll get this output here, and then you have everything that you need, okay? Just wait for that to run, and then once the video is complete, it's successfully created on Hedera, you can then get the video, okay? So this is another HTTP request node. If you click inside of here, this time it's a get method, and then the URL we're going to use is this one here. Let me just open this up so you can see it. It's this one here, which is the assets type, and then we need a video ID, okay? And so the asset ID is the ID before it, okay, which is, where's it gone? This one here, the asset ID, right? That's what we're gonna download. So you grab that, or you get it right from wherever it's stored on the Hedera servers. And then the credential type, you still need that, right? So make sure you select that, but you don't need any headers or bodies, okay? So once you run that, you'll get this output, and this is what we need here, okay? The asset URL, because now we have it. So what we can do now is we can download the video, okay? So we've got another HTTP request node here, and if you go inside of this, this is a GET request because we're pulling it down. And like I said, it's the asset URL, okay? So it's this one here. You just drag and drop this one here, which is this variable here, and then you can see at the bottom there it's worked. We don't need any authentications, but I did add the option of a response, and this is just to make it default, right? Because sometimes the files are quite big. So you can see in this instance, it's a 7.3 megabyte file. When I was testing it, I had like 20, 30, even 50 meg files, right? Because the output was huge, right? So to kind of set it by default, I want to make sure that the output is data, which means that I can download it instead of just viewing it as like a string, which is obviously no good to me. Okay, so when you test a step, you'll have the data file here. Okay, and just one other thing before I move on, you can see that the file type is a binary octet stream. Okay, and so we're not going to be able to use that to upload that into YouTube, right? It's not compatible. which is why I've added the next 2 nodes. Okay, so the first one is I'm gonna upload it into Google Drive because Google Drive is free. It's super easy to integrate with NA10. And the reason I'm doing that is because when you upload it inside of here, right, you just upload it as a normal file node. So it's upload node, operations file, the data input name is data because that's what it's called here. I've just given it a name of baby podcast. I'll put it on the root, right? Just test it and run it. The reason is when you download it from Google Drive, it'll automatically convert to whatever you've uploaded, whatever file extension you've uploaded into an MP4 file. Okay, so it automatically does the file conversion for us, which is what we need, right? Because we can only upload MP4. I mean, there's a few file formats that YouTube accepts, but MP4 is the most popular one, and it does it without any, manual input from me. So the next one after that is download MP4. So it's another Google Drive node. This time it's a file download operation, and we're going to do it by the by the ID. Okay, so if you go back to the previous node, you've got the ID here. Just change this to ID and then drag and drop it over here. Okay, you've got the file ID, test it, and you can see it here. But now if you look at it, look at the MIME type, right? Before the MIME type was, once it was uploaded, it was octet stream, right? So once it was uploaded, it changed to MP4, which is Google's own internal processes that did that. Now that when I download it, it's now video MP4, and that's exactly what I need for the final step, which is upload to YouTube. So this is a video upload node. So if I go back into the node here, node panel, go to YouTube, we're gonna do upload, okay, which is upload a video. Pretty straightforward, and then I'll show you how to set that up. So go inside of here, connect it up to your YouTube or Gmail account. The operation is obviously upload. I've just given it a title of Baby Rogan. You can put whatever you want in there. The region code, I've set it to the US. Category name, just select whatever's relevant for you. I've selected entertainment. The input binary field is data because that's what this file is called, right? And then I've just added a privacy status in the options for privacy as unlisted. And that's purely because I just want a human in the loop step. If I was going to production with this, or if I was doing this for somebody else, like a client, I'd want to make sure that I certainly automate all the content and upload the content, but I don't want the content to be public until at least I or the client has reviewed it and verified it, okay? And at which point, if I was to go inside of here, or even here, you can see that it's always unlisted, right? But once I'm happy with the output, I can then change this quite easily, right? Or I can modify the title, I can modify the description, etc., etc. I can add hashtags or change the category or whatever, okay? So that's basically the end of the automation. I hope you appreciate this one because this one took me a while to build. There was a lot of moving parts in here, and I needed to know how to do it with the available tools on the market, but also through the API. Okay, so back to the Scally draw, we've done the pay plan on Hedra, showing you how to set that up. We've done paid 11 labs. Now there might be other solutions for this that are free or low cost, but I think 11 labs is honestly the best that I've used, and $5 is not really that expensive for a service like this. Okay. And we certainly had fun with it. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. Do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll definitely see you next time. Take care.